Flash games just have.
Check out our original cartoons at the end of the video. Now it's time for SpongeBob theme song.
I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Are you ready, kids?
I guess.
I can't hear you.
Sure, why not?
Oh. Who lives in a blue void with nothing to see?
It's Sab Nino.
Who's messy and nerdy and artsy as he?
That's Sab Nino.
If a page and answers be something you wish,
Sab Talk, Sab Talk.
then comment some questions, you son of a bitch.
This is Sab Talk. Sab Talk, Sab Talk, Sab Talk, Sab Talk, Sab Talk, Sab Talk.
This is Sab Talk.
Sim. Are you ready, kids? Are you ready, people? Yeah! I can't hear you. Yeah! Who in an apartment not in the sea? Cringy! Free and strange and voice in the sea. Cringy! If weird misadventures or something you need.
The Grunge Bunch Chronicles!
Then grab a pizza and watch some TV.
The Grunge Bunch Chronicles!
The Grunge Bunch Chronicles! The Grunge Bunch Chronicles! The Grunge Bunch Chronicles! The Grunge Bunch Chronicles!
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain.
I can hear you.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Oh. Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants.
And is open and yellow and born as a he.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
And not going on to be something you wish.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
And jump on the deck and flop like a fish.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Who in a pineapple under the sea? Absorbent in yellow and porous is he. Hypnotical nonsense be something you wish. And drop on the deck and flop like a fish. Ready? SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants! Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? 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 Are you ready? Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants!
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain.
I can't hear you.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Absorbent and yellow and porous is he.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Hypnotical nonsense be something you wish.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Then drop on the deck and flop like a fish.
SpongeBob
Ready?
SquarePants.
SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants.
I can't hear you. Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? Sheep, I got one from the head to the bottom. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants. Are you? I can't hear it. Yeah. Oh! Who lives in a nautical?
I think I'm getting
It's time to kick Odie off the table.
Don't do it, Garfield. That's our...
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? Absorbent in yellow and porous is he. ¿Estáis listos, chicos? ¡Sí, capitán! ¡Más fuerte! ¡Sí, capitán!
Divi dans un instant la mer. Qui compte bien y faire carrière.
C'est la fatigue, je vous laisse euch stehen. Dann schmeckt euch ein Geld und kommt gar nicht zu spät. Jetzt
SpongeBob, let's go.
Ready for Christmas, kids?
Aye, Captain!
I can't hear you.
Aye, Captain!
Pineapple under the sea, SpongeBob SquarePants. Absorbing the yellow and porosity, SpongeBob SquarePants. If nautical nonsense be something you wish, SpongeBob SquarePants. The drop on the deck and pop like a fish, SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants. SpongeBob SquarePants. It's the SpongeBob Christmas special. La 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 la.
Are you ready, kids? Aye, Captain!
I can't hear you.
Aye, Captain!
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Absorbent and yellow and porous is he.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
If nautical nonsense be something you wish,
SpongeBob SquarePants!
then drop on the deck and flop like a fish.
SpongeBob SquarePants!
Ready? SpongeBob SquarePants. 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 SpongeBob SquarePants.
Hello random person, Sab Nino here. Have you ever wondered why SpongeBob never crossed over with any other shows? Like, there's so many cartoons it could have crossed over with. Rocco, Fairly Odd Parents, Loud House, Ren and Stimpy. There's so many shows they could have crossed over with, but didn't. This is because, according to Vincent Waller, Hillenburg rather not do crossovers due to the show being so self-contained. For instance, if SpongeBob were to cross over with Bessie Higginbottom, first, she'd be twice SpongeBob's size, and she'd die from lack of oxygen. Though a MIAB crossover could be fun. Just put SpongeBob in a fishbowl or something. Just because SpongeBob has never crossed over with any Nicktoon other than the Unite games, doesn't mean that SpongeBob has never done a crossover. Most of them being cross promotions with other brands. So I want to do a top 10 of some of the weirdest ones. Before we begin, I won't be including the Nicktoons Unite games or any of the bumpers. Otherwise, SpongeBob hanging out with Yu-Gi-Oh! Would definitely be on here. Plus, I won't be counting parodies like Family Guy or Robot Chicken. With all that out of the way, let's get started. Number 10, Fall Guys. Lately, SpongeBob has been crossing over with many brands and games, with Fall Guys being one of them. It's not much. The main 5 are represented via costumes and might have a dedicated level soon. I have the SpongeBob one. Isn't it cute? Number 9, Toyota. It's pretty ironic that SpongeBob can't drive, yet Nick made a deal with a car company. There has been multiple cars, all of them being cool in their own way. Though how can someone see out of the 2015 one? Is it like a mascot costume situation? If it's not, then I guess this would be the only car SpongeBob could drive. Number 8, Power Wash Simulator. Why is this the best looking SpongeBob game so far? Seriously, more SpongeBob games need to pull off this background style. The spongy construction project is onto something. It looks cool, but I don't think I'd spend money on Power Wash Simulator because, well, it's Power Wash Simulator. Number 7, Hot Wheels Unleashed. For the 20th anniversary, I presume, the game Hot Wheels Unleashed dropped some cars based on the SpongeBob characters. Not only could you get them in the game for a limited time, but you can actually buy these cars in real life. And a lot of designs look pretty sick. Number 6, Thomas and Friends. No words, just look. Look at how they massacred my boys. Number 5, Madden NFL 21. Being a SpongeBob fanatic and not a sports fanatic is super conflicting nowadays ever since Nick started partnering with the NFL. But in Madden NFL 21, they made a SpongeBob stage. Number 4, Learning with Pippi. In the pilot for Learning with Pippi, there's a scene in SpongeBob's bathroom. Is SpongeBob gonna suffer the same fate as Fred Flintstone? Number 3 is Big Time Rush. Despite SpongeBob never crossing over with other Nicktoons, that doesn't mean he never crossed over with any Nick shows. In the Big Time Rush episode, Big Time Beach Party, Patchy the Pirate has a subplot where he tries to dig up treasure. What's weird about this is that he never brings up SpongeBob once. Number 2, Mr. Kaizu meets SpongeBob SquarePants. I've never heard of Mr. Kaizu until this book came out, but it was a surreal read. Basically, SpongeBob dances so hard that he splits into tiny versions of himself and enters Mr. Kaizu, which makes Kaizu feel sick while SpongeBob had the best day ever inside of him. This will be the closest we'll ever get to SpongeBob crossing over with another cartoon, and it wasn't even animated. And for number 1, we have Saturday Night Live. I legit can't tell you if this counts as parody or not, solely because he looks like SpongeBob, acts like SpongeBob, and is even voiced by Tom Kenny. Fuck it, I'm saying this counts. Because what else can top SpongeBob saying the word racist and this?
Do you want me to sponge up all of the urine in America and then squeeze myself over Saddam Hussein's mouth?
And that was my list of the weirdest SpongeBob crossover / cross promotions. When you have as big of a show as this, it's no surprise that a lot of brands have had a slice of the pineapple flavored pie. Which was the weirdest crossover to you? Was there any I missed? Comment below. And as always, it's all Sab from here. Hello random person, Sab Nino here. I know plenty of people have made top lists of SpongeBob games, even bottoms, bikini bottoms. But despite this, I think I can bring something new to the table with some of my listings. Rules: no Nicktoons games, no crossovers, and Flash games are out. Let's get started. Number 10, Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. Depending on who you ask, people either like this one or hate it. I'm in the camp who likes it. The platforming can be fun outside of a few frustrating areas, mainly just the ball and Chum World. The ball. It's not perfect, of course. Some characters are out of character. SpongeBob looks off, and everyone and their grandpats have complained about the awful music direction. But for the first SpongeBob 3D platformer, I think it did alright, though I think a remake could fix a lot of the issues. Number 9, Breacher from the Krusty Krab. This is the most unique SpongeBob game, period. From Godzilla, Plankton, Spider-Verse Patrick, and Nightmare Fuel SpongeBob, you can't deny that there's no other SpongeBob game like this. Sometimes the game feels handholdy, especially the first Starfish Man stage, which makes me really wish you can skip cutscenes in this. But other than that, it's a fun one. Just don't get the Wii version. The motion controls are ass. Number 8, SpongeBob SwigglePants, or as most of the fan base calls it, WarioWare SpongeBob Edition. It basically works like WarioWare. You play in quick mini games and that's it. The mini games are fun, and I love the different art styles they experiment with. If you ever had the book How to Draw SpongeBob in 5 Splashy Styles, then this is a playable version of it. The downside is that it's pretty short, and the consoles are pretty niche. On Wii, you need a U-Draw game tablet, and the only other console it's on is the 3DS. If you have any of those, then I still recommend this one. Number 7, Employee of the Month. Even though 3D platformers make the best SpongeBob games, let's face it, point-and-click adventures are a better genre for the show. SpongeBob was always about its dialogue and slice-of-life-ish stories. I could have picked many of the PC games, but I went with this one since it's not based on any of the console games. The only downgrades I can think of are the cutscenes. The animation looks really off, and they reuse a ton of dialogue, but that's pretty minor. Number 6, Atlantis SquarePants DS. I already gushed about this one in my Ultron trilogy video, so I'll keep it brief. It's a fun platformer that's better than both the special it's based on and the console version. Number 5, Truth or Square. DS and console. I put both since they're basically the same game, just with slight differences. Just like Atlantis, I enjoyed the game more than the TV movie, because instead of showing clips of stupid shit that do nothing to celebrate the 10th anniversary, you get to play iconic moments from the actual show. Help Wanted, Christmas Who, Graveyard Shift, etc. If you want something more cutesy, I'd recommend the DS. but if you want something more akin to most SpongeBob platformers, then check it out on other consoles. Number 4. Lights, Camera, Pants. This game is SpongeBob's answer to Mario Party. Instead of a board game and collecting a MacGuffin, you're trying to win a part in the new Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy movie. What's cool is that depending on who wins, your character gets a cutscene of them playing the part they won. The cutscenes are super funny and well animated, and unlike anything I've seen in a SpongeBob game, I really wish online multiplayer existed when this came out, because the game is really fun with friends. Number 3. The Cosmic Shake. The newest console game in the SpongeBob franchise. I made an in-depth review of this game, so I'll keep my thoughts brief here as well. I enjoyed the story, the graphics, and gameplay a ton. Honestly, if the game had more to do, then I'd probably put it higher. Number 2. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie. One of the rare occasions where a game based on a movie turns out great. The gameplay is fun and tells the movie pretty well. The combat is mostly satisfying, the paddy wagon / slide stages can be fun, and the platforming is entertaining as always. This game honestly holds a special place in my heart because this is the first SpongeBob game I have ever 100%ed, which I would not recommend because this game is a bitch. Which is a great segue into the downsides. The repeat paddy wagon and slide sections feel like padding to make the game longer, which can make the game feel repetitive. Also, the cutscenes are pretty terrible, which sucks because the PC version and the GBA look infinitely better. And for number 1, Battle for Bikini Bottom, both the original and rehydrated. I know this entry is far from original, everyone praises the game to the high heavens as one of the greatest licensed game of all time, but as much as the overhype can get tiring, I hate to admit it, but there's some truth to it. The platforming, the dialogue, the character moves, they all make for a really good SpongeBob game. You can tell the people who made this are passionate fans of the show, which seemed rare since this was made during the beginning of the show's run. The only real downside is the lack of Clancy Brown as Mr. Krabs. The remake did a wonderful job recreating the levels too, and adding a ton of personality alongside that. It was unfortunately rushed to coexist with Sponge on the Run, but that shouldn't undermine how much they did to make this remake just as good as the original, even improving on some of it. And that was a top 10 list of the best SpongeBob games. Of course, this isn't the ultimate end-all be-all opinion that every fan shares, but I know at least a few of them are loved by fans. Who knows? Maybe I introduce you to some games you might have never heard of. What's your favorite SpongeBob game? Comment below. And as always, it's all Sab from here. Hello random person, Sab Nino here. A while back, I have made a top 10 list on the best SpongeBob games. So now, I want to tackle the worst ones. Unfortunately, even though there are plenty of good SpongeBob games, since there's so many, naturally they make quite a bit of trash. So let's discuss it together. Some rules. No Nicktoons games, no crossovers, no Flash games, and I had to play at least a little bit of each game. On to the list. Number 10. Super Sponge for the PS1. I'll be real, I don't even think the game is bad. It's just okay in my eyes. I simply need an extra spot, so I put it on here. In Sab Talk, I actually explained my relationship with this game and how it took me so long to get a hold of it. Unfortunately, the best way I can describe this one is unpolished. SpongeBob isn't very fun to control, the graphics are off, and the sound effects are a good way to trigger somebody's anxiety. If you want to play a version of Super Sponge, I'd honestly recommend it on the GBA. It's still far from perfect, but it feels a lot better to control. Number 9. Battle for Bikini Bottom PC. The original, not rehydrated. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I actually played this game first before the console version. I enjoyed it as a kid, but nowadays it's mostly ironic enjoyment. It's literally just minigames, and once you've played them all, there's really no point to replaying them. The minigames themselves are either brain dead easy or so difficult that even adults struggle to figure them out. The trivia sections are also a problem since a lot of them are just visual observations, and some of the answers are flat out wrong. Although, I love how communism is an answer for the question, who is Mr. Krabs' worst enemy? Long story short, just play the platformer. Number 8. Plankton's Robotic Revenge. Surprisingly, I don't hate this game as much as most people. Sure, it's boring, repetitive, and feels like the team literally didn't care. However, it's an alright game to turn your brain off to. Plus, it's a decent game to play and talk over with friends. There's certainly better games to play in multiplayer. Even better SpongeBob games to play in multiplayer. But I wouldn't be insulted if somebody offered me to play this. Also, can we all agree that this is the worst looking SpongeBob model of all time? I don't care if it's far distance, it's a f***ing insult to my eyes and I want it dead. Number 7. SpongeBob Obstacle Odyssey. This is Nick Arcade, not a Flash game. It counts. I used to love this game as a kid, and I even replayed it a little bit as an adult. On its own, it's a fine platformer with less than pretty graphics. Chunky Patrick is king though. The main issue I have with it is that it's a blatant reskin of the studio's previous work. Best Friends. Looking at gameplay of both at the same time honestly makes me sad. If it wasn't for this factor, I would have honestly said this game was good. If you want an original version of this game, thankfully, Obstacle Odyssey 2 is made from scratch. Number 6. Krusty Cook-Off Extra Krusty Edition. If this was simply a mobile app, then I think it's pretty alright. A simple cooking simulator that you can put on while you're in a waiting room. The problem I have with it is the fact that they thought it was good enough for Switch. Even worse, they think it's worth as much money as Rehydrated. I got it for a $3 discount, which is a lot better price-wise, but sadly it's still clunky. Switch controls do not do this game justice, and it's very easy to jumble the buttons up. And even though the Switch has touchscreen, there is no option for this game to play that way. Just play it on mobile. Sure, it has microtransactions and all of the mobile game pet peeves, but at least you're not dropping $40. Number 5. Legend of the Lost Spatula. This is the first ever console game in the franchise. And unfortunately it shows. SpongeBob isn't that easy to control, and the platforming is very easy to get lost in. Plus, sometimes they even get basic facts about the show wrong. It's a decent attempt at a first SpongeBob game, but they've made so many better games out of the franchise that I don't mind that this one is lost to time. Number 4. Atlantis Square on console. As much as I praise the DS version of this game, the console version is unfortunately not that fun. It's a bunch of uninteresting mini-games, and half of them are either bland puzzles or rhythm games. Actually, calling them rhythm games feels like an insult to rhythm games when there's no rhythm. No joke. Only the first rhythm game actually has music that you time up. The other times are just characters walking around. The only saving grace to this is the arcade section. At least those are entertaining and have very unique graphics. But I wouldn't even recommend this game just to play those. If you want a game based on Atlantis Square just play it on DS. Hell, even the Game Boy game is better than this. Number 3. The Yellow Avenger. I used to see this game all over the place, thinking it would be epic. Just look at this box art. Doesn't this look like a badass game to play? Unfortunately, what you get is a boring and forgettable platformer. This is perhaps the most boring SpongeBob game I have ever played. The cutscenes and tutorials have walls of text. Half of the game is fetch quests for other characters, and even the combat is frustrating due to most powers being code activated. Just skip this one. There's no reason to play this game, not even in an ironic sense. Number 2. SpongeBob Surf and Skate Road Trip DS. Okay, the Xbox version is unbelievably bad as well, but thankfully I didn't have an Xbox growing up, so I don't have to talk about it. Unfortunately, I did grow up with the DS version of the game, and it's not a hidden gem like the Altron trilogy. Watch that video. If anything, calling this a DS game at all is an insult to the DS. The gameplay runs at like 20 frames a second, and it's so basic that there's Flash games similar to the Sports Showcase. And guess what? Those Flash games run 20 times better than a game that is meant for handhold. I legit can't believe this game is even real. Before we get to number 1, I want to discuss a few dishonorable and honorable mentions. I'm including honorable mentions since I forgot to include them in the top 10 best video games. Plus, it could be a nice break from all this negativity. For dishonorable mentions, we have Boating Bash. It's alright, it's a unique idea, but it's sadly a little boring. Plus, the cutscenes feel unfinished. If I want to play SpongeBob in a racing game, I'd just play Nick Kart Racers 3. Nighty Nightmare. The only reason why this isn't on here is because I haven't played it personally. If that didn't stop me, then trust me, I'd put this pretty fucking high. It's very short, super handholdy, and the graphics are flat out unfinished at certain points. SpongeBob Simulator. I was tempted to put this on the list since for whatever reason the SpongeBob Wiki classifies it as a full-blown game, but it's technically a Roblox crossover, so I left it out just in case. The beta is very grindy and feels super gross to play. The graphics are weird, the loot system takes me out of the experience, and it's pretty obvious that the people making this do not give a rat's ass about the source material. For honorable mentions, we have SpongeBob vs. the Big One Beach Party Cook-Off. This is basically Cooking Mama SpongeBob edition. You cook with the Plankton family for a competition ran by Jack Kahuna Laguna. The theming to the episode is pretty artificial, to the point where other countries flat out don't mention the special in the title, but it's still fun. Underpants Slam. It's a pretty silly collectathon game, and is one of the better multiplayer games I was talking about earlier. What more can I say? SpongeBob Typing. For an educational game, it surprisingly has a lot of charm to it. The graphics are pretty cute, the games were a lot of fun to play when I was a kid, and the typing tournament has a ton of callbacks to the show. Why settle for Mario Teaches Typing when you have this? Also, this frame during the posture check freaked me out as a kid. I would have put it on my Nick Trauma list if I remembered it, but then again, so much SpongeBob was on that list that maybe it was best I left it out. Alright, time for the grand finale. The #1 worst SpongeBob game, in my opinion, is SpongeBob Hero Pants. This one upsets me a lot, since it's based on Sponge Out of Water. There's so many scenes in that movie that almost feel tailor-made for a video game. Unfortunately, what we got is a broken, ugly, unfinished, annoying, cash-grabby mess that made me flat out wish we didn't get a Sponge Out of Water game at all. First off, the game takes place after the movie for some reason. If that's the case, why does Bubbles have the book? That got burned in the film. The game itself is flat out a worse version of Plankton's Robotic Revenge. It amazes me that Activision had a boring yet fully functional game the first time, yet the second time takes so many steps backwards that you think this is a beta. The superhero meter is a cool concept, but every time it goes up, it reminds you that it doesn't last long. And I do mean every f***ing time.
Become a superhero. Be careful, it won't last long.
This is dialogue that should have been for the tutorial, but the devs decided to leave it in for the entire game. The rest of the dialogue is obnoxious too, since every time you run into an enemy, the character says the same 1 or 2 lines on loop. To make matters worse, if you haven't found all the pages, they flat out guilt trip you into playing this train wreck of a game so you can get the good ending. Even if you have all the pages, the good ending is just Bubbles breakdancing. Wow, what a completely worth it final note to end the game on. I am incredibly thankful that Activision doesn't make SpongeBob games anymore, because the last 2 games made without their involvement are more polished and have more personality than whatever the fuck Hero Pants was. So that was my top 10 worst SpongeBob games. Which ones did you hate the most on this list? Did you like any of the games I mentioned? Comment below. And if you want a more positive video involving SpongeBob games, there will be an end screen to my top 10 best games at the end of the video. And as always, it's all Sab from here. have phone? It's rude of you to assume that I have games. How so? Maybe I'm not a gamer. Or maybe I prefer consoles over apps. You don't know a guy until you actually get to know them.
Regardless, it's just another random day.
Mammals, are you ready?
Sab, I know you want me to come, but do you think I can stay here for today?
But why?
One of the hardest parts about having kids, they grow up so fast.
Sometimes I just want some alone time. Besides, I mostly have to be hidden anyway. I just want to know what it's like to get some solitude.
Oh, we all have those moments.
Well, I guess I can't argue with that.
Yo, I stole some pizzas! Hey, Cringe, can I have some of your water? Crying most of the day really makes you parched. Vodka? Cringy, you know I don't like strong beverages. Blah!
Well, this ain't the first time I've seen green. Yo, who's in the mood for some TV? I heard a new Dick and Richard comes on soon.
Cringe, what's wrong?
You don't drink this much unless you're stressed about something.
What's wrong with your fucking eye? That's what!
I'm not in the mood for your shit today. Tell me what's going on.
She can always do some acid. That's what I do when I'm stressed.
Clean yourself up, Dabby.
Whatevs.
I've written my latest idea, Mr. Businessman.
Let me guess, Sab. Is it another niche topic?
I'm not sure. Does Miku count?
Do you think I know what a goddamn Miku is?
No, sir. Anyways, I wrote a script on a top 5 Miku apps video.
I don't care, Sab, as long as Mikachu is hip.
Hooray! Totally bad. Hello random person, Sab Nino here. Recently I made a top 5 Steven Universe app video, because they've only made 5 games. And that inspired me to look into another interest I play apps of. No, not that one. There we go. I've played quite a bit of Miku apps, so unlike the Steven Universe list, I've experienced every single one of these games on this list. So let's jump into it. Number 5 is Amaguri Drain. This game is pretty simple. Collect yarn balls, and if a block comes in your path, just hope you have enough to go through. Simple gameplay, cute visuals, what more can I say? Downsides are that there's typically an ad after each level, which is a strategy I've always hated. Especially with Miku games, since they don't use simple background music. It's actual Miku music. Speaking of which, they only play one song, and it loops. It's a cute song, but it gets repetitive after a while. Other than those two gripes, it's a cute app. Number 4, Amaguri Jump. Amaguri Train too complicated for you? Try Amaguri Jump. You just jump on platforms and that's it. There's ads, but I like that it gives you an option to pay for the whole thing for those who don't want them. I think more apps should implement that system. Make it free, but give people the option to buy if they don't want to see ads. Number 3 is Tap Wonder. Remember Steven Universe Tap Together from the SU app list? This is the Miku equivalent to that. You perform concerts via tapping, plus you can dress her up, give her pets, and have her friends join her. Number 2, Hatsune Miku Tycoon. I just want to take a moment to appreciate how adorable the visual presentation of this game is. That's one of the reasons why I love Hatsune Miku and Vocaloid. It can experiment in so many different ways. It's just Tycoon. I don't fully understand how to play it, but somehow I won a few rounds. If you like Tycoon and like Vocaloid, you might like this game. Honorable mention, Logic Paint S. Okay, the mobile app is nothing special, but the Switch port is so beautiful. I love the colors, the character designs, it's just so cute and vibrant. The reason why it's an honorable mention is solely because I have never played it. And for number 1, Colorful Stage. I'm surprised at how much they cram into this game. There's rhythm games, and so much lore that it's hard to get into in this one video. The main Vocaloids are all here, but they introduced 20 original human characters in their own music groups, and each group has its own backstory. If you ever want Miku school lore, then this is the game for you. Plus the rhythm game aspect is fun too, even though I'm bad at the genre. That's why I don't play Friday Night Funkin'. And that was my top 5 Miku apps. Most of them are just reskins of other apps, but they typically put their own twist on it at least. Have you played any of these games? Which one looks the most interesting to you? Are there any top 10/5 lists you think I should do next? Comment below. And as always, it's all Sab from here.
Okay, Sab, we're monetized again. And you started posting more SpongeBob content. Now start milking the theme song.
But sir, that's how we got demonetized in the first place.
Then, I don't know, make more essays.
How about this?
What the hell is this?
A Steven Universe top 5 list.
Ooh, are you gonna bash it? Bashing Steven Universe would make us millions.
No, not really. I actually like the show. I'm just ranking the apps.
Sab, this is the 40th niche topic you've pitched. Will you promise me you'll do more popular topics if I let you do this?
If I said yes, will you let me do it? Hello random person, Sab Nino here. I don't care what the internet says, I still unironically love Steven Universe. It's far from perfect, don't get me wrong, but it tells an interesting story, tackles a lot of emotional issues in a respectful way, and has beautiful music/visuals. I wish I could talk about the show more, but sadly there isn't a lot of niche stuff with Steven Universe left on it. Plus, a lot of the interesting stuff regarding the show has been tackled by other creators. The merch is slim, there's no TV bumpers worth elaborating on, and they only made 2 console games. So I need to branch out and dig for something deeper. Mobile apps. There's quite a handful of mobile games that the show has pumped out during its run, so why not do a top 5? It's a top 5 because, well, there's only 5 games. Before we begin, I unfortunately couldn't play every single one of these games, since literally all of them were taken off the App Store. Also, I'm not counting any crossover games. Sorry, CN Matchland. Let's warp into it. Number 5 is Soundtrack Attack. In this game, you play a corpse running away from homeworld through the power of music. It's a rhythm game, which is a genre that sounds perfect for Steven Universe, since a lot of the music in the show is super memorable and iconic. However, this game didn't do so well with the execution. The Quartz character looks wonky, the sound effects are distracting, and they mostly butchered the music. Instead of using music from the show, they remixed them to be more upbeat, but some of them weren't remixed that well. And it butchered the background music to the point where it's unrecognizable. I do enjoy that it's a combat system, but sadly that's the only real redeeming quality I can give it. If you want a good rhythm game with a combat system, I'd honestly recommend Muse Dash. Number 4 is Steven Universe Tap Together. This is a game where big-headed versions of the characters attack enemies via tapping. Yeah, you just tap the screen to kill enemies. As someone who's played it, it's just mindless fun. The art is cute, the combat system's cute, it's fun tapping with other players. What more can I say? Number 3 is Dreamland Arcade. It's a game where Steven passes out and dreams up his own arcade. You can play a bunch of mini games and win tickets to collect figures, and said figures can give you some cool stuff. Sadly, you can't get this game anymore, but people who've already downloaded it can still play. Like me. Honestly, a lot of these games are a ton of fun. From riding on Lion, collecting stuff with Peridot, a reskin of the Lion one just with Lapis, a ton of them are entertaining. And quite a few of them were surprisingly challenging. There's not much to do after 100%ing it, but it's a good way to kill time for weeks on end. And every now and again, if I need a time waster app, I'll go with this one. Number 2, The Phantom Fable. So most of these games have been time wasters. You might be asking, but where's the lore? Well, Phantom Fable has got you covered. It's a point-and-tap adventure game where Steven and Connie finds a book that sucks people into it. It's sucked up to crystal gems, so it's up to the 2 of them to get them out. I don't know the full story, but the little I've seen looks really cool. The concept looks interesting, the visuals are nice, even though Connie blankly stares into my soul, and the gameplay is simple yet effective. It honestly sucks that you can't play this one anymore, because I would have totally played this if I could. And for number 1, Attack the Light. In this this game, the crystal gems find a prism during a mission. The 7 lights scatter all over, so it's up to Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl, and Steven to find them. Does this gameplay look familiar? That's because it's done by the same devs that made Save and Unleash the Light. As a matter of fact, canonically, this is the first one of the Light series that you can't play for some reason. The combat system and movement style is almost identical to Unleash the Light, and if it plays anything like that game, then this one's another banger. The only gripe I have is the art style. They used the far distance designs from the show to give it a more unique look, but it looks weird here, and Pearl's stance looks off. Luckily, they found a way to make this style work in later games. Overall, this game looks wonderful, but it's a shame that you can't play it anymore. But luckily, you can still play Save the Lights without even seeing footage of this game. And that was my top 5 Steven Universe apps. It honestly sucks that you literally can't play any of them anymore. A lot of them were pretty fun, and some of them I wish I played before they left. So as a moral for this video, appreciate what you have online, because you never know when it'll go like these games did. Which ones have you played? Which one would you play? Did you have a favorite? Comment below. And as always, it's all Sab from here. Hello random person, Sab Nino here. Guess what month it is? You have 3 seconds. It's October! The time of year where you can dress up, get candy, and embrace the weird and scary. For the most part, it's a fun holiday with tons of great memories. But on the other hand, it can lead to trauma. Unfortunately, I've had my fair share of traumatic experiences. Sometimes on Halloween, sometimes not. But most of them, A, happened to me as a child, and B, come from Nickelodeon. So I wanted to count down my top 7 Nickelodeon traumatic experiences. First off, a few rules. Rule number 1, they must be from my childhood. Rule number 2, no fan art. They must be official creations from Nickelodeon. And number 3, not all of it has to be from the shows. I count bumpers and stuff on Nick.com as well. So let's begin, starting with number 7. This traumatic experience is probably the tamest out of all of them. I was 5 years old with an ear infection, and I was watching the SpongeBob DVD, The Seascape Cavers, which might be the first time I've ever watched the show. One of the episodes on the DVD was SpongeBob meets the Strangler, and there were a few scenes that irked me. The first scene was when the Tattletale Strangler drew SpongeBob on the back of a car seat and brutally scuffed it. The second one was every time the background switched to purple. The intense music, dark shading, and the way the Strangler put his hands on SpongeBob freaked me the f*** out at the time, since my brain was like, oh shit. If he did all of that to the car seat, I could only imagine what he could do to SpongeBob himself. Thankfully, this fear got better as I got older. And the initial reason why I feared this episode eventually became why I appreciate it. The way they portray the Strangler as a legit threat not only gives this episode a unique atmosphere, but makes SpongeBob's accidental foils to his plans even more cathartic. Number 6. This traumatic experience I've had when I was 7. I was watching the SpongeBob episode Scaredy Pants. But for a while, I wasn't made aware of its sister episode, I Was a Teenage Gary. This happens with a lot of holiday episodes of shows. Due to how unfrequently the episodes air, it leads to the second episodes it pairs with being unknown about. For instance, it took me a while to see the SpongeBob episode The Paper, due to the first segment being Valentine's Day. Anyway, the episode started off fine. Nothing scary or unnerving, until SpongeBob turned into a snail. I was terrified of his transformation, and for some reason, something was just unsettling about his design. I just hated looking at it. So for a while, I would change the channel every time it came on, which wasn't often. Thankfully, this fear was short-lived, since around 8 or 9, I watched the episode just fine. Number 5. The hardest part about this list is simply remembering what freaked me out and what didn't. Sometimes I even forget scenes that I was disturbed by, which almost happened with this entry on the list. In May of 2006, they premiered the episode of SpongeBob Ghost Host. Weirdly enough, there were quite a handful of scenes that freaked me out in this one. The first one being Squidward's face after SpongeBob repeatedly hit him a couple of times. bumpers. The second one is when Squidward's mother melted, and the freakiest scene of them all, both instances when a SpongeBob projection's eyes slithered out of its sockets and bugs came out. Every time that scene came on, I would always close my eyes in horror. To be honest, I don't remember how any of these fears were cured, so I'm just going to assume it was a simple case of maturity. Number 4. This topic is actually partially lost media, so I have to be really creative when describing this one. In 2007 to 2008, Nickelodeon had 2 Halloween events, Shocktober and Shocktober 2. They went all out for these events, with the flash games, the episode premieres, and most importantly, the bumpers. The bumpers for this event were legit intense and spooky, and they even made original art for it. For instance, SpongeBob was Frankenstein, Gary was a dragon, Plankton was some Megamind monstrosity, and Aang was a skeleton. However, one of them freaked me out for a short period of time, but unfortunately I can't find it, so I have to create the visual. There was one bumper that showcased Cosmo and Wanda as flies. They had big soulless eyes and weird looking mouths. I hope that one of these days, these bumpers get found, because there's a ton of interesting stuff in them. Number 3. In 2007, I got Atlantis Squarepantas on DVD. It was a standard DVD, but on the back of it, there was something unexpected. It came with a separate disc showcasing a sneak peek of the Mighty Bee, a show that I don't think was even being promoted on the channel at the time. I put it in and it showed the full pilot. I honestly enjoyed it until the scene with the dog show. When the judge was deciding which dog won, it was revealed that Portia's was in fact a rat. This scene freaked me out a ton, and Portia's freak out afterwards didn't help my fear either. Looking back, I think the fear was justified. The rats in the show are the freakiest shit to come out of it, and I want all of them dead. Despite this less than ideal first impression, I still watch the Mighty Bee. A ton, actually. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I even rewatched it on Paramount Plus and caught up with all the episodes I missed. It's no masterpiece, but I really appreciate the show for providing something different for the network at the time. Plus, it probably helped modern SpongeBob get its identity. If you watch The Mighty Bee after watching the newer seasons of SpongeBob, the humor, music, and animation is so similar, it's almost uncanny. Number 2. In 2008, there was a SpongeBob premiere block during the summer. I was having a blast with it. I loved whenever the show had week-long premieres like this. Nick used to hype them up so much that almost every kid in the playground knew about it. They mainly aired season 6 episodes at that time, and one of the episodes they showed was House Fancy. So the thing that freaked me out the most was when SpongeBob absorbed all the blue paint. Yeah, no, it was the toenail scene. Did you really expect anything else? It's one of the most infamous scenes of the show, and everyone and their grandma knows about how gruesome this scene is. It was the first episode I have ever hated as a kid, and I even warned my neighbors for a short period of time. However, after my 3rd viewing, I eventually got used to seeing it. Nowadays, I still hate the scene for how morbid and gory it is, but I think the rest of the episode is overhated solely due to this. It's actually a decent episode if you look past it. It's definitely not perfect, but it's far from the worst episode in the series. Before we get to number 1, I want to discuss some honorable mentions. These didn't make the list due to either not impacting me as much, or due to not remembering if I was traumatized by them. Ghost SpongeBob from Ghoul Fools. This unnerved me when I first saw it, but after my 2nd viewing I got used to it, so I didn't think it was noteworthy to be included on the list. The Fairly Odd Parents episode, Betty Bye. The episode was pretty tame until we saw the gross close-ups of a sleep-deprived Cosmo and Timmy. It was super weird to see, since FOP wasn't known for its gross close-ups. I didn't include it because I simply can't remember if I was scared of it or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if I was. Jimmy Neutron's Men at Work. Just like Betty Bye, this episode was tame until a certain point. The McSpanky's restaurant was eventually taken to space, where it was invaded by aliens, and the episode ends with the restaurant being all destroyed and creepy. I didn't remember if I was freaked out by this either. Maybe I was just irked by it. In the Mighty Bee episode Hivejacked, there was a scene where Bessie was freaked out over what will happen to the hive due to Portia staying in it, which led to her going insane and repeating, "When everything's changed, I can rebuild." I also also don't remember if this one freaked me out, but given my past experiences with this show, I wouldn't be surprised. And for number 1, this one is pretty oddly specific, so before I explain what it is, I have to give some context. On April 28th of 2022, El Supersonic Q made a video where he discussed lost Halloween bumpers called Nicktoons Zombified. They were rumored to be 4 bumpers: The Fairly Odd Parents, Fanboy and Chum Chum, The Mighty Bee, and SpongeBob. Fop and Fanboy had short clips, and the Mighty Bee one had a super unsettling screenshot. Since I want you guys to sleep tonight, I won't show it. In August of the same year, all of the bumpers were found, and the SpongeBob one turned out to be a rumor. Or was it? Even though SpongeBob wasn't featured in a Nicktoons Zombified bumper, that doesn't mean SpongeBob wasn't zombified. And coincidentally, it happened at the same time those bumpers were airing on Nicktoons. In the mid-2000s, there was an online world on Nick.com called Nicktropolis. However, when Nickelodeon rebranded its logo from a splat to orange text, Nicktropolis was rebranded to Nick Club. Both Nicktropolis and Nick Club are lost media, and have no two towns rewritten equivalent. But in October of 2011, Nick Club had a Halloween event called The Night of the Reanimated. It was a survival game featuring Nick characters at the time being featured as Halloween-themed creatures. One of the penguins was a vampire, Chum Chum and Patrick were werewolves, and SpongeBob was, you guessed it, a zombie. And him and the game were given a pretty unsettling title screen. I was scared of this title screen and the zombified SpongeBob for weeks. The red background, the muted color scheme, everything about this was pretty spooky to my 11-year-old brain. When I played the game for the first time, it made my fear even worse, since all of the creatures were shown as question marks with silhouettes. So for a while I didn't see what he looked like in-game. There was even a creature named SpongeBob, which I was also pretty afraid of before I saw it. I was just afraid of the unknown, since the game just came out. But once I actually played the game, my fear dwindled down, and now I honestly look at this memory pretty happily, since it's a core memory of my childhood that not a lot of people have even heard of. So those were my Nickelodeon trauma stories. Did you relate to any of them? Were there any fears relating to Nickelodeon that you experienced? Comment below. Happy Halloween, and it's all Sab from here.